imagine if you could send your kids to a Christian school and you didn't have the burden of figuring out where the funds were going to come from to pay for their tuition. Imagine you had the opportunity to send your kids and you didn't have that weight of figuring out how to pay for it. We are going to talk about a real life scenario where this is the case, and it's our inspiration for our series. We're talking about stewardship. It is not just an abstract concept, but it is a biblical principle. And we're going to be talking about and encouraging churches across Kansas to begin to really implement stewardship. So this is also a perfect time because we are launching our Hero Matching Scholarship Program, and it's launching here at the end of January. We're really excited to tell you more about it. But that is the idea and the concept, this biblical principle of stewardship.
If you're curious about what is trending in Christian education, you've come to the right place. Hi, I'm Dalena Wallace, homeschool mom, microschool leader, and education missionary. And this is Wise and Otherwise, where we are sharing real stories from the front lines of a growing movement in Christian education. Stories of pastors, parents, and everyday believers stepping up in new ways to shape the next generation. From microschools to school boards, we'll explore how the church can lead in education again, creatively, affordably, and in true partnership with families. If you've ever wondered what role you can play, I hope these conversations help you find your next step. It is wise for the church to get involved in leading education. Otherwise, who will? Come on, Christians, let's lead the way and redeem education for the glory of God.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to 2026. This is our first podcast of the new year. I'm very excited to be kicking off the year with a really strong theme that we're very passionate about with our Hero ministry, with HCMA, Heartland Christian Ministries Association. We have an amazing campaign. It's a matching scholarship fund. And we're so eager to kick it off. And what we're doing is we're talking about the idea, the concept, and the biblical principle of stewardship. So I have with me today, Emmi McCabe. Thanks, Emmi, for being on the show.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation.
So Emmi and I have talked about this quite a bit since, really the first time that we met. So I will share a little bit of my history and what has piqued our interest collectively and as an organization. So Heartland Christian Ministries Association, which is an association of churches, and our mission is empowering churches to transform communities through faith-based education. So I'm constantly looking around and learning from those who are doing this well. And one organization or ministry would happen to be the Wichita Diocese, the Catholic Diocese. So I learned about their idea, their model of stewardship, probably, honestly, 15 years ago when I was still living in Wichita. The way that I found out about this, believe it or not, was at the gas station. I was pumping gas in my car and just kind of having small talk with the person next to me. And we just kind of, we're talking about what neighborhood we lived in and that sort of thing. And somehow we just got on the topic of schools. And he told me that he sends his kids to the local Catholic school and he's able to send them there tuition free. So he and his wife are not carrying the burden of paying for the cost of their school. And I was just so surprised to hear this. Emmi, you tell me a little bit more because you're an active member of the Wichita Catholic Diocese, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And actually, we are new to the diocese. We moved here from the St. Paul, Minneapolis area, and I love St. Paul, Minneapolis Archdiocese also. I was very active there. But then we moved to Wichita first for family. But then when we heard you can send your kids to Catholic school here for free, and I will explain the air quotations in a little bit. We were like, wow, that's amazing, because it had always been a burden in my heart thinking about how am I going to send my kids to a good school once we start a family, you know. And I was teaching in a Catholic school at that time and knew how much it cost. And it was a stressful time thinking about that. So when we heard about Wichita and just, you know, since I have family here, my sister's here, visiting frequently and just being in their parishes, just kind of fell in love with the community and this idea, and it became like a no-brainer to move here. So yes, it's amazing, and I gotta tell you, it is unique to Wichita. It's not something that exists really that I know of in other dioceses around the country. So it's very special here.
And it's humbling as well to see that this model is really implemented. Like, it's really, there's infrastructure behind this, which as I'm learning more and studying about this, so Emmy shared with me, because she knows I'm just so interested in this and just want to keep learning more. I really feel like our Protestant brothers and sisters need to learn from our Catholic neighbors how they've been doing this, and how certain parishes have made this happen. And there's been a lot of guidance, right? I mean, this is a very structured, well thought out and developed plan that's actually been implemented and taking shape since the 60s, since 1968. Emmy shared an article with me, and it's called The History of Stewardship in the Diocese of Wichita. And I'll just read the very first opening paragraph. It says, "Stewardship is a way of life and a vital part of the Diocese of Wichita, giving of our time, our talent, and our treasure, and bringing us closer to God," was the message Father Thomas McGread brought to St. Francis of Assisi Parish in Wichita, Kansas, when he was appointed pastor in 1968. He brought with him a vision from the words of St. Peter. So in 1 Peter 4:10, a lot of us are familiar with the scripture. It says, "As each one has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace." And as I was reading more, I hear that Father Thomas McGread is referred to as the father of stewardship around here. So he was very intentional, right? I mean, he really guided and taught this concept.
Yes, and that is what I hear. I don't want to speak too much on that, and I'm super excited. I know for like our future guests who can speak more knowledgeably about that. Again, like, I am very new to the diocese, but I have definitely heard about him and just his fire and his passion, and then the intentionality around it, and just like the commitment it took from the whole community as well has been just so impressive, because like I said, this is unique to Wichita. And I remember in St. Paul, Minneapolis, we would have something called, it's Stewardship Month of October, you know, and it is like an extra envelope or something, like where we would donate extra for the month. But as you will find out, that's not what stewardship actually is. It's not just like a 1 month, one-time thing from a handful of people. So yeah, they have definitely a structure that I'm sorry I can't speak on because I'm a baby to the parish, but we do have a lot, like some guests lined up that can hopefully talk more on that.
That's right. Yeah, we're really excited to explore this even more. We're hoping to have Father Lease on. And if you remind me, he's like the vicar of stewardship?
Yeah, he's the vicar of stewardship and evangelization for the diocese. And we also have a parishioner who has been here for a very long time. And I think even you, Father McGread, personally, but don't quote me. So I'm
Okay.
super excited for that. But yeah, as far as like
Yes.
someone coming in new from a completely different system, it's just been so amazing to see like the dedication of the community here in Wichita, which is, really what makes stewardship work. And it doesn't exist in this way in, other parts of the country where I've lived.
That's amazing. So if you have been listening to some of my podcasts in the past, you probably heard me say this before, but I really truly believe that where we are located in the US, like our geographic location, we are in the heart of America. So Kansas is geographically located right in the center of the US. And I believe that is really significant. Not only that, but there's something about Wichita. You guys, I'm just telling you, like we are called to lead the way in this and to be good stewards. Just following the example of our Catholic brothers and sisters, I believe that the Protestant churches can also rise up to this model of investing in education and lead the way for all churches across the country, across the world, to see that discipleship and the education of our children is not limited to our Sunday morning programs or our youth night on a Wednesday night or whatever that might be, or Sunday school classes. Education and discipleship are one, and they are done Monday through Friday. They're done throughout the week. And so when you catch that vision and you understand that that's what we're called to, that truly is the Great Commission, we're called not only to disciple and train our children and the next generation, but we're also called to be good stewards of what the Lord has given us. So I'm really excited. I was very excited to learn that this is really unique to Wichita, because I also feel very strongly that the Lord is calling us here in Wichita and the surrounding area and all of Kansas to be activated as a church, to be engaged. And this is the way that we can do it. So let's talk about right here where they talk a little bit in this article. It just says that, I'll read a little bit more here for our listeners. It says, stewardship was seen as a way of life and a manner of action. Parishioners were challenged to recognize, receive, and accept their God-given giftedness, then within a well-organized process to annually commit to the sharing of their time, talent, and treasure, generously, sacrificially, and proportionately, in the service to the broad mission of the parish and the wider universal church. Okay, so there's a few things that stand out to me here. Number one, that it was seen as a way of life. This isn't a once a year, we're going to have a campaign, our stewardship campaign, and this month we're going to pass around an envelope, or, it's not limited to one particular area. It's not limited to finances. As you'll see, this is not just a way of life and a manner of action, but it also is inclusive of how we spend our time and how we spend our talents. So we're going to break this concept up into a series, really. We're going to be talking about stewardship for several weeks here. But right now we're doing part 1 and part 2. So part 1 here with Emmi is where we're just kind of exploring how this looks for the Catholic Diocese and what they've done in that and how it's actually led to their parishioners embracing education and investing in education.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of Wise and Otherwise. We'd like to ask you to take a minute and please rate and review our podcast so that others can learn more about us. It would mean so much.
Another thing that stands out to me when I'm reading this little section is that this is happening within a well-organized process. So that's something I'm really interested to learn more about. And I think we can talk to Father Lease about that when we're able to. But what does it look like? But it looks like there was this history of like, he cast this vision in 1968. And then from the article, it says that then Bishop Gerber designed and facilitated I'm sorry, I don't know how to say the word, diocesan.
Diocesan,
Okay.
yeah.
He facilitated a diocesan-wide listening and planning process in the 80s. So the vision was cast in the 60s. In the 80s, it was still a matter of discussion, but they decided to make this a diocesan-wide planning process. And then they had this gathering, and it was called A People Gathered. And so at that time, there were over 100 listening sessions that they conducted through the diocese in 1985. So I just think, like, look at how much they invested in this over many decades of conversation, of really fostering and cultivating this idea of stewardship, not only casting the vision, but starting to put some things into place. So what, from your experience, how does it look today? Like, are you called as a parishioner to invest your time, talent, and treasure? And how do they do that?
Yes, definitely. There's actually, to me, it's a formal process, because just to give some context, like in my previous diocese, I had not been married yet, and I was pretty active as a young adult in the church and like took leadership. But it was all very like optional, I guess, or just something I wanted to do. And I knew many of my friends would do it, and we'd organize to, develop faith and discipleship and solidarity with one another. And then on the other end, like the people that were active in the church, you'd see the people in the pews and just donating a lot and volunteering a lot were more of the senior citizens. Right. And people who were retired, and then families, some parents would do more, but it was like, oh, it's just understandable. They have little kids. They're not as prolific in their volunteering, as such. And then nobody would ever check like, oh, how much you're giving to the church. Not that they're doing that here necessarily, or I don't know. Again, can't speak on that. But it was just something we did, and nothing like we had to commit to. Now, coming here to Wichita, like I was kind of in the mindset, okay, now I'm a parent, I have like 3 kids under 6 and under, like I can kind of withdraw a little bit, right? We'll take care of family life, which I think is understandable, but we're still called to prayerfully think about what we can contribute out of our time, out of our talent, and out of our treasure, so then at the certain time every year, we're called to fill out a form for our parish, like what ministries can you volunteer, like we're asked to prayerfully consider, like what ministries can you give your time to, what and how much can you tithe? They ask for 8% of your income, and then the other 2% goes to some other charity of your choice. And then, like and then they put it on file, and it's something that they just encourage constantly, especially when the time is, when it is time to collect. Those are called the stewardship forms. So for me, it wasn't like, oh, I can just step back, because like I see this list and, here's my name and how many ministries or which ministries am I going to help out with, like the meals for new moms, prayer group, church cleaning on Saturdays, just different things that I can volunteer my time for. And I have to commit to that for the year. That kind of what you're asking about?
Exactly. I mean, I think that is something really that churches should maybe consider if they're not already doing that. when we get into like our next session here, we're going to do another recording and we're going to talk a little bit about what that can look like for an individual. Examples of how we can give of our time and we all kind of know about tithes. I mean, I would hope that seems like a pretty universally accepted practice, and I hope that it's encouraged in most churches, but it's not just limited to our finances. It's inclusive of our time and our talents, which I think is beautiful. But for our specific interest, because we're really interested in how we can make a Christian education affordable and accessible for all students, I feel like this is key. Like this is a very important piece of the puzzle that I feel like the Protestant denominations and the Protestant church are really missing this. One thing I can say is that the Lutheran denomination has also been very good and intentional in investing in education. So they do this pretty well. But a lot of churches that I grew up in and churches that I attended have not really called us to any form of stewardship when it comes to how are we investing in the education, the training of the next generation, and what that could look like and what possibilities that opens up. And it really provides access for families that wouldn't have that opportunity to send their kids to a Christian school. So we're going to get into it a little bit more in our next podcast here, but this was just kind of like to open it up, the idea to our listeners. What would it look like? Can you even imagine if you and your family didn't have to worry about how much it cost to send your kids to a Christian school? Would you make that choice? Would you be sending your kids to a Christian school if it were already covered? Because you weren't the only one carrying the burden of paying for their tuition. What if it was shared amongst the congregation and the church that you attended? What if your pastors and leadership of your church understood the importance and the significance of training the next generation for Christ? And so we all shared in the cost. So we will get into it. That's something we're going to be diving into a little bit deeper. Emmi, thanks for being here this morning. Do you have anything else to say here before we leave this first session?
No, I'm just really excited for this year. I'm excited for this series on stewardship, and also just like in tandem with this, I'm excited for the launch of the Hero Scholarship Fund, the matching scholarships. So maybe you can tell us more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are partnering with churches and other donors and supporters of Christian education. And because we have had the generous donation, we have $100,000 in our scholarship fund currently that's able to be matched with whatever our Hero School founders are able to raise in their own fundraising efforts. And so this is a form of partnering together as the body of Christ, which is what we want to encourage. It's not just going to be on one person. Yes, we can have a generous donor who believes in education, but what about everybody else? What about our pastors, our churches, other members in the congregation? What about grandparents? What about our neighbors, those who see the importance and the significance in training at the next generation? This is a partnership, this scholarship opportunity. And so we're excited to be sharing more. Our Hero School founders are out actively looking for the funds so that we can match it. And every dollar goes toward the tuition. It's a scholarship for students to attend our Hero schools. So we're super excited about this. We believe it is from the Lord. He wants the church, he wants the body of Christ to be active and engaged in education. So join us next time. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.